because they made a lot of money abroad. That's why they repatriated much of it at a lower income
Could I ask the senator, do the seniors from his state and other citizens from his state travel to Canada and buy these prescription drugs because they know and are confident that they are getting at a much lower price the same product? And unfortunately, citizens in my state have to go south, and that's unfortunate when they have to do that, because we do have a much larger problem there, I'm sorry to say.
Well, Mr. President, the citizens from North Dakota often have to go to Canada to buy a prescription drug. I've told the story about the old codger that was sitting on a hay bale in a farmyard when I had a town meeting, and he was just sort of nibbling on a piece of straw, and he said to me, he said, you know, my wife, he's about 80 years old, he said, my wife's been fighting breast cancer for 3 years. And he said, the only way that we could pay for our prescription drugs was to drive to Canada once every 3 months. Because when you buy tamoxifen in Canada, you pay like 1/10 of the price or 1/5 of the price that you pay in the United States. So he said, we did that every 3 months so my wife could keep fighting breast cancer. Of course they do that. Now what is happening is consumers are allowed to bring back, as an informal strategy, about 90 days worth of supply of prescription drugs for personal use only. But most American consumers can't do that. They don't live anywhere close to a border. The question is, can the rest of the American people have access to the same prescription drugs that are sold at a fraction of the price?
But I asked the senator, isn't it true that the Congressional Budget Office has determined that this measure of yours, this modest measure, of only countries that are of the highest level of quality, of inspection, of all the standards that we have, wouldn't it save the American consumer $100 billion? $100 billion, is that true?
Mr. President, it would save the Congressional Budget Office says it'll save the federal government about $19 billion, and then about another $80 billion will be saved by the consumer. So that's about $100 billion, nearly $100 billion in savings in total, $19 billion of which will be saved by the federal government for its purchases, and the rest by the American consumers.
Then finally, I'd like to ask the senator, what is the basis of the argument against the senator's amendment? What possible reason, frankly, except for perhaps the influence of a special interest in this, our nation's capital?
Well, I'm not a very good advocate for the other side. I mean, if one were to ask, what's the best argument opposed to my amendment, I would say that there aren't any arguments that are the best. There's a range of poor arguments or arguments that don't hold much water. My own view is that, let me just describe. I started by saying I don't have a brief against the pharmaceutical industry. I want them to do well. I want them to be successful. I want them to keep finding and searching for miracle drugs. And by the way, much of the work they will do with that comes from the National Institutes of Health and the massive investments we make in research. I want them all to be successful. My beef with them is, I think, a pricing strategy that says to the American people, here's what you pay and you can do nothing about it, and it's because we've decided that's what you pay, and we're going to offer everybody else around the world lower prices. That makes no sense to me. That's my beef. This is a pricing issue. They are wrong about it, and I think that the way to correct it is to give the American people a little bit of freedom here. Give the American people freedom. You'll save money for the government, save money for the American people. And I want to make one additional point while the senator is here. Yesterday, I read a whole series of advertisements. You know, if the senator from Arizona is like me, when I'm brushing my teeth in the morning, I've got a television blaring, and I hear all these ads. Go ask the doctor if the purple pill's right for you. I don't have the foggiest idea what a purple pill would do for me. But you feel that the ads are so compelling, you almost feel, I gotta get out of here. I gotta stop brushing my teeth, go get a phone and call a doctor someplace and see whether my life might be improved by taking a purple pill. I read a whole series of these advertisements. You know, does your restless mind keep you from sleeping? Do you lie awake exhausted? Maybe it's time to ask if Lunesta is right for you. Go ask your doctor how to get 7 nights of sleep Lunesta free. You know, I mean, I read a bunch of these, I won't now, but, you know, bladder problems and Flomax and Ambien, you name it, and they advertise it all day, every morning. And I just say, knock off a little of that. You know, give us some better prices. God bless you for doing all that you do, I would say to the industry, but give us fair prices. Give fair prices to the American consumer, and knock off a little of the advertising. The advertising, after all, is for a product that only a doctor can prescribe. You can't get this product unless a doctor thinks you need it. So stop asking me if the purple pill's right for me, or asking me to ask a doctor whether the purple pill's right for Senator McCain. You know, knock it off.
Could I say, ask unanimous consent to just make an additional comment, Mr. President?
Is there objection? Without objection,
I want to thank the senator from North Dakota who has been pursuing this issue for a number of years. I really believe that we are on the verge of success. I appreciate his eloquence. I appreciate his passion. But most of all, on behalf of the citizens of my state who can't get up to Canada, who now are experiencing unprecedented economic difficulties, who need these life-saving prescription drugs, many of them senior citizens, that I just want to say thank you for your advocacy. I think you made an eloquent case, and I hope that my colleagues have paid attention and will vote in the affirmative for your amendment today.
Mr. President, let me say that Senator McCain has been a part of this effort for a long, long time, and this is it's really interesting. With all of the action on the floor of the Senate in recent weeks, this is one of the few examples of a significant policy that is bipartisan. We've got Republicans and Democrats, over 30 co-sponsors who've worked with us to make certain that we can do this, do it safely, and give the American people the opportunity they deserve. This is really bipartisan, and I appreciate that a lot. I want to say that the National Federation of Independent Business supports this. The AARP supports this. We've got a long list of organizations that are strong supporters of this legislation, or this amendment, I should say. And I really hope that today, perhaps at last, at long, long last, after 8 or 10 years, we might finally achieve a breakthrough and get this through the United States Senate. I have said previously, the pharmaceutical industry is a formidable opponent. I understand that. And we've had difficulty getting this in a piece of legislation that gets signed to give the American people the freedom and to give them fair pricing. And when we do this, Senator McCain, myself, and others, it is suggested somehow that we have no regard for this industry. It is not the case at all. It just is not. We have no regard for a pricing policy, however, that we believe is unfair to the American people. And it's been that way for too long, a long, long time, too long. And perhaps today, with the vote on this amendment, I expect later this afternoon, perhaps today will be the first step in getting that changed. Mr. President, I yield the floor.